Alex Jensen came on the Hanson Scotty program just about an hour ago. So this is fresh off the presses here. And I wanted to play this for you. And we talked about it between the two shows. And, you know, we're prepping typically during our program at that very moment. And we're about to walk in and we kind of, so a lot of times I'll be listening to Hanson Scotty on the way in, but I'll miss like the last 20 minutes or so because we're getting ready for our stuff, right?
Yeah.
Alex Jensen came on. He's the new head basketball coach for the University of Utah running youth basketball program. Am I getting this right? When you hear that, I want you to know that that's the context, know who he played for, know the time frame that he played at the University of Utah. It was the salad days of Utah basketball. But here's the thing. Alex Jensen was brought in to bring back the winning ways that he was a part of as a player. When he was asked about this on Hanson Scotty's program, about bringing back that same vibe, filling the Huntsman Center again, getting back to Final Fours, being in a national title game, possibly. Here's what he said about it.
You know, that's part of it. It's hard because I don't think that the success that Coach Majerus had over the time he was here, I don't think that could probably ever be repeated. You know, it's a different landscape. You don't get most guys for 2, 3, 4 years, but it's definitely it's what a lot of people remember. But I'm trying not to pressure myself into competing with that, if that makes sense, because that was like, if you look back over the decade that he had, it's hard to, especially in the Big 12, but I don't think it'll ever be repeated. So I'm not too worried about matching that. I've already accepted defeat on that one.
Yeah, it's
not that we won't try. Not that we won't try. I'm not saying it won't be good, but it's hard.
Utah basketball. We're gonna try.
I would love to hear what fans think about that.
Look, Alex Jensen, I think, is the best hire we've seen at that place in a while. Here's the thing: what we got with Craig Smith, though, the guy who would win the press conference typically, right?
Well, he won at Utah State.
Yes, and he would. But this is also got. If you're at this level of college coaching, like typically you are dialed in for the automatic. Here's what I'm going to say answers, and maybe you should be excited about the full disclosure, transparency. But Utah didn't win a title back then, and Utah making a Final Four and an Elite Eight. If listen, by comparison. If Morgan Scalley came in and said, look, what Coach Whittingham did, what Coach Meyer did, and then subsequently in 2008, what Coach Whittingham did, for those undefeated seasons, I'm not going to say that's a really hard thing to do. I don't think we can do something like that. I've already accepted defeat. We can't really have those types of seasons.
Yeah,
again.
Winning conference titles, going to New Year's Day bowl games. We can't do that.
But we're going to try.
We're not going to do that.
That is the standard. That's why you're brought in. Nobody thinks you're going to win a national title in the next 2 years, okay? That's a tall ask. What they are asking you to do is to have a vision set very, very high, and to make sure that the public knows, that your fan base knows, that you're committed to try to go as far in the NCAA tournament every year as you can. And far as you can for the standard that Utah fans and Utah should have with a guy who's been there before, they're hoping that you say, I want to be right back there again. And I want to honor the past of Utah basketball by bringing it back to where it used to be. Am I being mean about this? I just don't think that was... I mean, maybe I could see the sandbagging side of it, but he actually just I don't know. It didn't even sound like sandbagging. It just sounded like, yeah, we're not really focusing on that. We're going to try real hard to win some games.
Yeah, I'm guessing fans are not going to like that answer. I will give him this. I do understand the part he said about putting unnecessary and undue pressure on himself and their program.
Yeah, and no one wants you to be Rick Majerus. He's dude.
And that's
he's
fine.
He's hard.
Say that, hey, I don't want to put pressure on us. We're gonna stack W's one day at a time. Use some cliche like that.
Yeah.
That's understandable.
I've already accepted defeat.
But saying, yeah, we're not going to be able to do that here under my watch, that's not going to rally the troops here.
You know what?
And here's the other thing I'll say about that. You're in the Big 12. It's one of the best leagues. The SEC was this year, but last year the Big 12 was the best conference in college basketball.
You
say
mentioned that.
You can't go to Elite Eights and Final Fours this year. Two Big 12 teams this year went to the Elite Eight. 4 made the Sweet 16. Right? Or was it 3? BYU and Arizona. Yes, 4.
BYU, Arizona,
4
Texas
Big 12
Tech,
teams
Houston.
made the Sweet 16. What you're saying is you can't win this conference? You're not going to be able to compete with those 4 teams in this conference? You can't say that.
But I know
You can't say that we're not. Don't expect us to do that.
But he even doubled down and said, "Well, yeah, I mean,
why isn't these things possible? You can do more than Majerus did in the 90s,
especially in the Big 12,
because this is the Big 12. You're on a bigger stage. That Majerus did that in the WAC / Mountain West, mostly the WAC. In the WAC, like you're in the Big 12 now. You have resources that Majerus and Utah in the 90s couldn't have dreamed of.
By the way, let me just, as an aside, since you just mentioned the word resources, what donors want to pour their resources into a program where the guy goes, yeah, we're probably not going to get back to where we were back then, but anyway, your donation is appreciated.
You could understand a little bit of a pause. Wait, what? We're not. You want us to give you this much, but you're already discounting
Compete, man. Let's go.
Pursuit of winning Big 12 championships? Whoa. If you're saying you're not going to be able to duplicate what Utah did in the 90s, you're conceding that not only will you not make a Final Four Elite Eight, what you're saying is you're not going to be able to compete with the top teams in this conference because that's the access you have in this conference. BYU is showing it already.
Yeah.
In year 2, making it to the Sweet 16, being all in. I assumed, I hope that Utah's doing the same thing BYU's doing or trying to. What he said has me stunned.
Yeah.
And maybe he's busy preparing for a play-in game on Wednesday. His team is still fighting for a playoff spot. Maybe he's distracted. Maybe that was a little bit too honest of an answer, or maybe he didn't phrase it correctly. I'm trying to give him as much of a pass here as I possibly can, but I still can't get past what he said. Like, you have to, if you're trying to rally the troops, you're trying to get this program up off the ground. I mean, Coach Calhoun up at Utah State says we can win a national championship here in Logan. He's not shying away from anything.
Yeah. That's weird. That was a weird tone.
Very strange.
Weird tone. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he's got both of his feet planted firmly in the NBA currently.
I hope so for the sake of Utah fans, because that's exactly why Alex Jensen was being brought in.
Okay.
Was to take things to another level. They could be in the middle of the pack in the Big 12 under Craig Smith and could have saved themselves on a buyout. Yeah. That's not what they're doing here. They were saying that where we're at is unacceptable. We don't believe we can get to the point where we can compete with BYU and Texas Tech and Arizona and Kansas and Houston. Houston, by the way, was in the AAC 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's crazy.
If you can't do what Houston's doing, why not? Just all Houston had to do was hire the right coach. Houston's not, other than Phi Slamma Jamma, Houston is very similar and even had a shorter run in the 80s. Like, why can't you do what Houston's doing right now? That's the difference a coach makes. And I think that, and I hope that Alex understands that that's the expectation. You can shy away from it. You can say, don't put that pressure on us. But Utah fans, that's the whole point. They're excited about this. Right. Now we got a chance. We got Alex. We got our guy.
I'm wondering how far this clip's going to go, kind of out there in the ether, to see what this thing does on social media, or if people are going to go, nah, he's talking like a guy who hasn't taken the job totally by the horns yet. So maybe that's the problem. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back. I've got a game for JJ to play on the way back here. It's our Would You Rather, and it's a fun edition of it. So stay right here, 97.5 the KSL Sports Zone.